Hey everyone, it's Marc for Spirit Hive, Director of Counselling and one of the speakers for Spirit Hive. And as we're in this month of communication as the main topic, I'd like to run something past you that's a little bit more practical. I think is a purely practical tool. I know we talk a lot about philosophy and a lot of personal development stuff and a bit more from a theoretical point of view, concepts, ideas, and all that sort of stuff. But I want to run a tool past you that I think has been proven useful for a very, very long time. And I've used it in both my practice as a lawyer and as a counselor and in life, just in general life when it comes to communicating with people. And it's called assertiveness or assertive communication, whichever way you want to call it. So assertiveness is or assertive communication is one of the many ways that we can communicate with people. There's a range, and you might know them from passive aggressive to aggressive, purely aggressive, and then in between all that, there's this assertive communication style that, well, in business anyway, often leads to the best buy-in, the best take-up of people, because it's not passive, as in, well, I'm not going to do anything about it. It's not aggressive, it's like you must do something about it. It sits somewhere in between. So if you've got some interpersonal conflict with anyone, or you want to get something done, or you want to enforce a boundary, or whatever it is that you want to get done, assertive communication is a very good way to get a message across with as much buy-in as possible. So how do you do it? I'm not going to make this video too long, but it's a purely a how-to. And it's kind of a 5, 6, 7 step process, whichever way you want to see it. And I'll run through them using, for instance, dealing with teenagers as a topic, which is something I've had to do for a number of years until our daughter turned way past that. She's now 20, going 21 next year, so we're sort of past that point. But it's still a valid topic, just even in discussions with other people, just adults. So here we go. So if you've got something that you want to get off your mind, you want to enforce a boundary, you want to enforce, for instance, or you've got an interpersonal conflict with someone at work, say a manager, here are the steps, and I'm going to use the teenager as a topic. So say that your teen has been allowed to go out, but for sometimes hasn't been enforcing or hasn't been listening to the boundary of being back home on time, or not drinking, or whatever you guys initially said that he or she wasn't allowed to do. So now you want to sit down and have a conversation with your teen about that, and then say, well, what's the other way of looking at it? And I'm not writing in Michelle's children's topic here. This is purely about communication, and the teenager is just a simple example. So what do you do? Well, first of all, step number 1, get their attention. Whether it's your manager or your teen, you want to make sure you got their attention. So make sure you have a proper setting where you can have that conversation. Get a cup of coffee out, a drink, whatever. This is the conversation that's happening. Second of all, state how you... Well, no, that's the third, sorry. Second of all, state the facts. So after you've got their attention, you want to make sure that they're clear on what the facts are. And that's an important one, because that's where you don't want to throw opinions in. Opinions are not part of this. So what are the facts? The facts are that over the last 3 weeks or the last 3 weekends, even though I said that you needed to be home by midnight, you didn't arrive before 1:30, 2 o'clock. Something like that. If that is a fact, well, those are the facts. In work conversations, you can do the same thing. So state the facts. The third step is state how you feel about that. And that's where assertive communication gets interesting, because it keeps it with you. It's not like, well, you have made me feel whatever it is that you're feeling. It's like, no, just describe that feeling. I am feeling sad, upset, annoyed, frustrated, and not make a sentence longer by saying I'm feeling frustrated because you haven't come home on time. That's not the point. Again, it's about keeping things with you. That's where assertive communication is so powerful. So the facts are that you've been coming home too late. I'm quite upset about that. The fourth thing that you would do is state how you think about that. So here's where your thoughts come in. So the facts are you've come too late. I feel quite upset about that. And then it's like, well, how do you think about that? Now link those thoughts in with your feeling, not with the behavior per se. So a sentence along those lines could be, I feel sad because I thought we had an understanding about coming home in time. Or I feel sad because I thought we were clear together on what the rules were in this case. Yeah, so again, try and keep it with you and about how you now think that something has gone wrong, not blaming the kid or the fellow employee or the other person for it, keeping it with you. The fifth step I think we are now is acknowledge the other. So always make them feel good. So even though we are having a tough conversation here with someone, it's always a good thing to make sure the other person understands that they're valued for who they are. So could be something along the lines of, look, I know it's tricky. Yeah, I know it's enticing. I know it's interesting to stay home late because you don't want to come home early. You want to stay with your mates and keep doing the fun stuff. I get it. Yeah, so that's how you acknowledge the other. The sixth step, I think it's 6. Yeah, that's where you would state what you want. Yeah, the outcome that you're looking for in this case. So if you're a parent, it's like, well, what I'd like to see is whatever it is. Whether it's coming home on time again or whether it's another conversation about how to settle this, but claim what it is that you want. Not what you want the other one to do, but what you want out of the situation. That's step number 6. Then step number 7 is the reward, as in, what is the reward for doing that? Yeah, so if we do that, and it's about the win-win, if you will. Yeah, so if you come home on time, then I'll be more likely to let you go more often and give you more freedom still. Or, just the fact that we have this conversation, makes me feel really good about our relationship and makes me feel good about being able to trust you. Whatever, I'm just making stuff up here, but find the win-win in what you are proposing. So if your child or your fellow employee or your boss or whatever, the person you're having a conversation with is following your recommendations and actually would say like, okay, I'm willing to think about that. What would be the win-win? What will be the reward for you both? And then you would pretty much, after that one, it's not necessarily a step, but you would hand the conversation over to the other person along the lines of, what do you think about that? Hope that makes sense. So I'll run through it again. First of all, you want to get people's attention. Sit them down, make sure they're listening, talk to them. Second of all, state the facts. What is going on? Factually only, no opinions. Opinions don't matter. Third of all, how do you feel about it? I feel hurt, I feel frustrated, I feel angry, I feel whatever. Fourth, the thoughts that you have about that. I feel hurt because I thought we had a good arrangement going. Or I feel annoyed because I think that was not what we initially agreed upon. Something like that. The fifth one is acknowledge the other. Have a talk about the fact that no matter what's going on, you still value that person as a person, and potentially even see reason in what they're doing, or see value in what they're doing, or acknowledge the reason why they're doing that. In teenagers' case, it is just fun to hang out with your mates and not listen to your parents, let's be honest. Then step number 6 is tell them what you want. And step number 7 is finding that win-win / reward in what's going on. And then step number 8, if you will, but the last step is handing the conversation over to the other person by saying, what do you think about that? Okay, that's it in a nutshell. It's super practical. This is a technique that I mainly learned, in my work as a lawyer initially, but only real properly, I think, when I started to study mindfulness integrated CBT, MICBT, which is a great self-responsibility tool, modality, if you will. It's all about taking ownership of your own experiences, ownership of what you communicate, ownership of life, not pointing fingers, not justifying, not blaming, definitely having conversations with people, but not making other people at fault, or making your happiness or your contentment or your sense of satisfaction dependent on someone else. You make that dependent on you by stating that you would like to see a different outcome. So that whole modality, and there's lots more about that, MICBT. But the assertive communication style, I really liked in that particular modality because it's so easy to follow, and it generally leads to people going, okay, we can have a talk about that. If not, hey, bad luck. We're not in control of other people. They can always say, no, up yours, I'm not going to do that. But with the assertive communication style, you have the most chances of buy-in, because aggression often leads to folded arms, and passivity, not doing anything about it, generally doesn't lead to change. So if you're interested about this, ask me. Just post it in the comments. We can discuss this more. Like I said, I've got this from a modality. There's lots more information about that. But I'm absolutely sure, based on my own experience, but also what I've been taught, that by learning to communicate assertively more and more and more, and using these steps and keep working with them and keep repeating them and keep practicing with them, your own personal communication style can become much more effective, leading to better results for you. And if not, at least it leads to less conflict, because no matter if people agree or not, they can only say, look, I see it differently, but they will not feel attacked because you're not attacking them. And that always feels good in the conversation. So hope that makes sense. Like I said, if you got questions, you know where to find us. We'll keep talking about communication over the next couple of live videos and in the live Hive. And look forward to seeing you in a real live Hive soon, once all this COVID stuff is behind us. And until that time, stay well.